All right, let's go ahead and create a turntable animation in Maya, and I'm going to do this a bit differently than what is shown in the resources. And the resources for this course, the turntable that is shown has you animating a camera rotating around your object. Now, this can be done, but most of the time a professional will not create a turntable like that for a couple of reasons. Most of the time, they're going to not rotate the camera, but instead they're going to rotate the object. The reason why you would want to rotate the object instead of the camera is because um, you're creating a turntable so that someone can check out your work. And ideally, you're going to have good lighting and a good background in there that's not distracting and that shows off your work really well, correct? So, if you're rotating the camera around, then the environment in the background, if it's whether it's simple or not, is going to be whipping all over the place. It's going to be very distracting, and part of your mesh will be in shadow, meaning that part of your model will not be, viewed in the same lighting conditions. So what would be best would be to, uh, you know, keep the camera still, set up your model, set up lighting, make sure the camera is viewing the model from the best, angle for the lighting that you create, and then rotate that model. That way, the shadow is going to stay where it is, and each part of your model will be viewed in like an optimal space, and we'll make sure that the viewer is not distracted by the camera motion, rather they're focused on the model. Okay, so if you've already done this, the assignment for week 5 with the turntable and you rotated the camera, that's totally fine. I'm just going to quickly show you how to do it the other way here because I said I would, but I wasn't able to get to it last week. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'll create a plane. This is going to be the floor, and that will catch my shadows in the future. And if you're following along, you can see here the grid settings I'm using right now if you want to use those grid settings. I'm going to make this plane, let's just say, I'm going to change the scale X, Y, and Z to 100, make it quite large, okay? And then I'm going to make a sphere. And what I'm doing is I'm just creating a very simple stage that's not distracting. So I'm going to scale the sphere up quite a bit until I can, see through it like this. So I can see the interior of the sphere. I don't want to scale the sphere so far up that the plane, right, is visible on the like the edge. What I want to do is I'm kind of creating a little dome building like this, right? And then I put the camera inside of it. So we have this simple background. I'm going to click on Polysphere 1, and I'm going to change the subdivisions axis to 50 so that we don't see any faceting in the background. I'll select the sphere, and I'm going to go to make sure I'm on Modeling, Mesh Display, and click on Reverse. This will flip the polygons to the other side so that they are now visible. I'm going to go ahead and select both of these, and I'm going to add them to a new layer by clicking on this button. This layer, I'll double click on it and I'll name it stage. I'll hit save, and then I can change this V, I can go to this right box here and change this to R for reference. And now you can see I can't actually select this, so I'm not accidentally clicking on it all the time, okay? But now you can see I have a very simple stage, which is good. All right, if I look at the module, the practice assignment for this turntable animation, it says create a sphere, torus, cone, and center all the primitives on the grid plane. And this is, a little confusing, but normally I don't ever ask a student to make a cone. The reason being is that if we look at a cone here, I pull this up and we look at the bottom, ta-da, giant end gone, right? So usually we don't use cones when we're modeling. And then we also don't typically want to end a sharp point in a single vertex, okay? So just a bonus tip. Anyway, let's just go ahead and follow these instructions anyway. Let's see. Okay, sphere, torus, and cone. I'm going to move these instructions over here. So let's create a sphere, torus, and a cone. Yuck. And let's see. All right, let's actually get these on top. So we can do the same thing we did here. I'm going to move this up, hit D as in delta, hold V for vertex snapping, and drag this down to the bottom of the torus, and then hit D as in delta. Then I'll hold X and grid snap it to the bottom like that. This one, I'll show you another trick. If we have a face that's on the bottom that's flat like this, you can go to Modify, Snap Together tool, click on one face, click on another face, and then hit enter, and it will snap them together like that. So for this, let's see, if I go translate Y 0.5, translate Y, yeah, translate Y 1 on the sphere will bring it up to the top. And let's get these, I'm going to get these relatively close to the center. One very common mistake that students are making constantly is that their rotations go way too fast. Think about a character model or something like that that's rotating. We want to rotate around quite slowly on the turntable if we're going to do a turntable, so that the viewer can actually appreciate and see the model, right? If we're going around too fast, then yeah, that's amateur hour. We want to really slow it down, okay? So we'll figure that out. Okay, so I've got these. Let's do a little more. Okay, that's fine. In the week 6 assignment, which I'll create a video for as well, we're going to do a bunch of lighting stuff in here. But for just creating a turntable, I'm going to turn on this anti-aliasing. So I'll click on this. And I'm also going to use this screen space ambient occlusion. Click on that. Looks like this isn't, oh no, it is on the floor. It's just barely touches, so it looks like it's floating a little bit. I'm actually just going to push this down somewhat. And then, yeah, I'm going to get this less faceted, so I'll select the torus, channel box inputs, poly torus, where it says 20, I'm going to change this to 40. And for the sphere, I'm going to change this to 50. And let's click here and change this to 30 maybe. Yeah, just to get it less faceted. Okay, let's turn off the grid for now. By clicking, you can turn it on and off quickly, clicking right here. I'm going to select all three of these and hit Control G. That will group them in the outliner, see? And if I click on this little plus icon, it'll open up that group. So with Control G selected, let's actually turn the grid back on real quick. And you can see that the pivot point is on the center of the grid, which is great. If it was not on the center of the grid, with this group selected, I would hit D as in delta and move it to the center of the grid, right? But because it is on the center of the grid, if I hit E as in rotate and I rotate this, see how they're all rotating around evenly, that group? Great. All right. So I'm going to minimize this. I'll turn the grid back off. I'm going to go to workspace, animation. I want to set the camera up somewhere, something that's kind of interesting and centered. You can go ahead and use the film gate and all that good stuff that was shown in the video tutorial for the class. Let's just go ahead and stick with 24 frames per second for this one. That's okay. And let's make an entire rotation 5 seconds. So that would be 120 frames. So let's put this on frame 1 and over here 120. So now we have 120 frames. I'm going to go to frame 1. So I'll drag this over to frame 1 and you'll see that if I rotate this, that's the rotate Y, right? So on frame 1 we'll be at 0. So I'll right click on rotate Y and key selected. Frame 120, let's take that to negative 360, which will rotate it counterclockwise, I believe. All right, so negative 360, right click, key selected. Remember, you're supposed to go all the way to 120 before you do that, or else you'll just key over. Yeah, so this is going to rotate clockwise. That's good. All right, then I'll hit play. And you'll see it is looping. Now mine's looping smoothly. If I click on rotate Y and then hit F, you'll see that the reason why mine's looping smoothly is because these are linear tangents. Yours might be set to spline by default, or something else. But all you need to do is we want to have a straight line between this key and this key. If your line is not straight, then it will not repeat smoothly, right? It's going to slow down and speed up. There might be some ease in, ease out, or something like that, and that could possibly make it, that'll make it look strange, and it might not loop. So what you can do is you can select both keys like this, and then just come up here and click on this little line. If you hover over it, it says linear tangents, right? So that's good. Then if I hit play, yeah. So this is exactly what I'm expecting. Whenever you're doing something like this, we want to look out for tangents, right? And by tangents are unintended communications between visual elements, right? In other words, let's say my camera looked like this. See how the tip of the cone is grazing the horizon line in the background? We don't want that, right? So we want to make sure that we get something that looks good. All right, and then for last week's assignment, they're just asking for a play blast. So what you could do, right, is same thing. Go to play blast, get your settings set up in the same fashion I showed you how to do this with the bouncing ball, and then you can save it. So I'll name mine turntable. I'm just going to put it on my desktop, and then hit apply. And now if we look at this video, you can see this is what I have. I would say that this is even too fast for a rotation. I know it's 5 seconds, but it should probably be going at about half this speed. So maybe 10 seconds for a full rotation. That would be much better. This still kind of screams amateur. All right, cool. So I'm going to use this to do the tutorial for the next assignment in week 6. But yeah, anyway, here's how I would recommend going about doing a basic turntable. Thanks.